Hi everyone, Monique here, Intuitive Soul Savant. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new here. Please pop over to the playlist, Pluto Challenging Aspects, and you'll find a lot of content there that is relative today and relative for the next 20 years. So you've landed here if you're interested in our wonderful, I'll call it a planet, even though it was demoted, Pluto, and challenging aspects from Pluto, because anyone with astrology knowledge eventually finds what is causing them a lot of stress, and they may have already known, looking at their chart or seeing in an astrologer, that they have a challenging Pluto transit coming. So a challenging Pluto transit is a conjunction to the natal sun or any planet, an opposition to the natal sun or any personal planet, a square to the natal sun or any personal planet. And as of January next year, Pluto will go back into Aquarius and come back to the last degrees of Capricorn before it ingresses back into Aquarius for 20 years. Now, this is important for everybody else other than just Aquarians, Leos, Taurus, and Scorpio, which will be experiencing those challenging aspects to their natal sun. This is for everybody, and I haven't made a video yet on Pluto transiting Aquarius. There is one element of that transit that I'm really passionate about, and that's the individuation of each human on this planet. And for us, Aquarius rules the collective. Pluto rules death, transformation, and rebirth, and transformation and rebirth, and transformation and rebirth. It just goes on and on and on. But once you've had this Pluto transit activated, you're awakened to the transformational energies of Pluto, and you can keep going on the journey even after Pluto ingresses into the next sign, because those channels are open and you're aware of what lays in your unconscious. So today's video is going to be called Pluto's Show and Tell, and we're going to discuss the patterns in our unconscious, subconscious, whatever you'd like to call it, that we become aware of from the transit of Pluto. Okay, now we're not going to talk so much about addictions, right? Addictions are what is laying above the actual patterns. So the addictions are actually the symptoms of a much deeper, think Pluto, underworld, darkness, shadow, inner child. That's what we're looking at today, these patterns that we have gone through our whole life unaware that they have been operating in our life. Now, if these patterns are dysfunctional, they're going to cause issues in our life. And these issues come up in our awareness, that we may see that we have the power to either change our beliefs, our actions, the people and places that we're dealing with, anything in our life that's causing discomfort and distress, because it's just not working out for us. Our intention isn't matching the result, our manifestation. It's usually because there's an underlying pattern that we are operating out of. So we all know about addictions, and there's so many addictions. And in my experience, the addictions were on top of many, many dysfunctional issues, and they were squashing down those issues, or the awareness of those issues, for me to survive in the world. And our ego is caught up with this transit as well, because we have needed to survive in the world with the patterns and traits or traits that we have brought from our early caregivers, whoever they may be. Excuse the noise that's going on out there. So we're not so much going to pinpoint the addictions, we're going to pinpoint what lays beneath those addictions. What is the purpose for us picking up something to soothe or push down the energy that is wanting to be released through our body? Now, these patterns actually work against us and are in no way our authentic self. These patterns that work against us steal our inner power, diffuse our inner power, because we are born powerful beings. Pluto isn't here to give us power. We've already got power, but the patterns that we have associated, identified ourselves with, those patterns are blocking, in some cases, our power, diffusing the full power that we have. Now, many families have many different patterns. In every family, there are different patterns, because you've got two parents, and both parents have come from different families, and they're joining together with two lots of family patterns. They're all grouped together, not just one pattern. A group of patterns from one family, a group of patterns from another family, they come together, and with them joining, there's a third group of patterns, and usually that's what we identify ourselves with. And if we go back through our paternal lineage and our maternal lineage, we will be able to come to understand the patterns that we are operating from, identifying with. Now, these patterns don't just all pop up to our awareness as soon as Pluto starts to activate our charts. There's no possible way that we could deal with the awareness of all of the patterns in one go. We are looked after, we have a higher soul, we also have our intention to be able to ask, just to have some space to slow down if it becomes too overwhelming and too intense, which it will. Now, firstly, depending on how dysfunctional your family is, depending on how toxic the patterns are that you've inherited from your ancestors, because these lineages go all the way back and they're handed down to each generation like a present. Here you go, darling, this is what we do. There you go. You have a map there. Our parents didn't know that they were handing over dysfunctional patterns or toxic patterns, because if they did, they'd have some awareness themselves to be able to correct their teachings that they gave to us. So today we're just going to have a look at a few patterns that come to mind. And I had lots of patterns, lots and lots of patterns. And they have stopped me from doing so many things in my life. They have stopped me from enjoying relationships. You know, it got to the point that pretty much I couldn't move left, right, forward or back because I needed to take stock, be still. This went on for many years, to allow the energy to move through my body, to minimize my focus on the outside world so I could actually see these patterns and become more aware of them and more aware of them. Now, you can look on Google and you can educate yourself. This is what's so beautiful about understanding even a little bit of astrology. because you could be going through terrible crisis and wonder, why me? If you understand that Pluto is there in your sphere, affecting your chart, then, you know, you're one step ahead of the game. You know, others that have got no idea why they're facing one crisis after another crisis. Okay, so use your astrology knowledge. There's so much on the internet about the inner child and shadow work, because these patterns have been sitting in the shadows. The inner child has been holding on for dear life to these patterns to survive. So once we're made aware of them, then we have the power to be able to move these through our body and make different choices. And that's what it's all about. The rebirth, I'm your guinea pig, okay? Because I am just learning myself what is the rebirth. If you Google what does a rebirth look like, I couldn't find anything. So I'm trying to help you guys with the information that I'm going through in the rebirth. If you go right back to the beginning of the channel and in the playlist, I have made 3 videos on my exact conjunction, the exact conjunctions of Pluto to my natal sun in Capricorn. Okay, so there's a 3-part series there. When I was in the darkest night of the soul, there's no way I could have made a video for you. I look like death. I've actually taken photos of myself along the way, and to see me today and to see me back then, it's just, it's a miracle. My skin, everything died. My cells, I believe, have all been transmuted, rebirthed, and I'm still on that journey. I'm still on that journey. And as far as the tropical chart goes, I've had Pluto conjunct the Sun and Mercury, and now Pluto going into Aquarius to conjunct Venus and Mars. In my Vedic chart, I have the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars in Capricorn. So in the Vedic chart, Pluto is only ingressing into Capricorn now. So on a higher perspective, I can work with that Vedic chart as well. So let's just start with rescuing as a pattern. Now, that pattern is formed in childhood when the child has been taught that they need to look after everybody else, especially firstborn children have this pattern where they have been left to look after the siblings. And so then they leave home and then they want to look after the neighbours, the extended family, their husband's family, you know, the people they work with, the people at their churches, the people at their gym. They're professional rescuers. However, the energy of rescuing others takes the focus off ourselves. And if we're busy rescuing others, there's no way we're looking at what we could do to better ourselves. Rescuing is exhausting, and you might kid yourself that you're a good heart, you're an empath, and you're here to help the world like I thought. However, I think I can help the world better by making videos of my experience for others than running around rescuing people. And these people that we rescue are not taking responsibility for themselves. I'm not talking about helping another if you're inspired to. I'm talking about rescuing people who won't take responsibility for themselves. It is exhausting, and in some cases, the person you're rescuing could turn around and turn on you, and you don't understand why. I was just helping. That's a big pattern. It's exhausting. It can have your body turn in on itself, and diseases could start in your body from rescuing others. Now, when we give up rescuing, there's a certain guilt that rests with us because we've been doing it for as many decades as you have been on this earth, this life. You know, that's our mode operando. And to break that rescuing habit, we really do need to do some study to understand why we do it and to realize that it isn't benefiting ourselves and we're losing our power every time we do it. Okay? People pleasing, a similar thing. Especially people my geno, because our parents were born baby boomers after the war, and there was still, I'll use the words old-fashioned energy around that time, the 50s, and then into the 60s things changed, and then the 70s. However, people my age, we were taught, and our caregivers were coming from a whole different generation to what life is about today. So it was very common to people please. And when we people please, we don't speak our truth. We hold things back. We hide things. We may not even like the person that we're pleasing, but because we feel compelled to please them because of the patterns that we've been operating out of and identifying with, we keep pleasing people. Now, what pleasing people does is it puts others before ourselves. Rescuing is the same. We're putting others before ourselves. And there's only one thing that eventually happens in a lifetime is a burnout. If not, cancer or other diseases, because the body turns in on itself. If we can't say no, our body will say no. If our body is saying no, we need to look to see, where am I not saying no? Another pattern is controlling our environment. These are packed, these patterns. You really need to unpack each one. I'm just going over the top of them. Down the track, I might make videos on each pattern that I'm discussing today, because you could easily make an hour video on each pattern. There's no doubt about it. Controlling our environments. Now, the reason we would control our environment, and you may not even know you're doing it, but you're moving people here, you're moving people back, you're saying that this needs to happen, saying that needs to happen, and the only reason you're doing it is to protect yourself. Usually people that control their environment and everybody in it have come from a family where they had no control. There was a controller in the family who controlled everything, and the other people in the family, members of the family, they didn't have a say. So when the children leave home, they feel, oh, wow, I feel like I can control my environment. Controlling behaviors also come from trauma. Because if I control my environment, then I can save myself from allowing others to hurt me. If I can manage everything and organize everything and steer it in the direction that I'd like, all I'm doing is protecting myself, rather than being grounded and rooted in the first chakra and trusting my purpose, trusting life, trusting the earth, the universe, trusting myself. Controlling behaviors is a big one, and you may not even be aware that you're doing it until you are aware. And then you'll see that you're doing it in all sorts of circumstances. You know, when they say the comfort zone, it's scary to move out of the comfort zone, that's control. That's not allowing change to bring us new things in life. If we're controlling too much, we really are missing out, and we're not trusting our process. Running away is another pattern. When we have conflict, or when it looks like conflict will arise, we just run away, we just get out of there. And we may have done that in our family of origin, when if we had violence, alcoholism, drama, we could run and hide. There's many ways the members of the family deal with dysfunction and toxicity and negative patterning. And beliefs are all caught up with these patterns as well, because we have a set belief, therefore the pattern operates. And so that's why Pluto is requiring us to really dig deep. And it's painful, excruciatingly painful sometimes to change these patterns. Even to become aware of them can knock you back, because you've been operating from that space all your life, not even realizing it, and then bang, it's made clear in front of you, revelation. And it's like, oh my God, really? And that's the awakening that Pluto can bring as well. So running away from conflict, not being able to use our voice, not being able to speak up, not being able to ask for our needs to be met, physically, emotionally, mentally, practically in the world. This is a big blockage. And this chakra needs to be unblocked through the Pluto transit, especially in the rebirth. You're not reborn until this chakra has been unblocked, because the new you will require you to speak up for yourself from that place of power. Right? Pluto rules power. Power within, not the scorpionic power over others, which is the negative manifestation. The power within, to stand firm for self. Blaming others is another pattern. Maybe in your family of origin, you grew up and anything that went wrong, we blamed the next door neighbours. We blamed the school. We blamed our jobs. We took no responsibility whatsoever for what was going on in our life. Many families are like that. You've only got to go to a few luncheons with people and listen to how people operate. Blaming others. No, we are responsible for our life. Everything we see is a mirror to us, for us. Everything, people, places, and things. It's all a mirror to us and what we intended for ourselves, and where our self-worth is at. Boundaries. The inability to say no. Boundaries is huge, because to thrive in this world, we need to know who we are, what our needs are, and we need to be able to say no to others, even if they're continuing to manipulate us to their agenda. We need to be able to say no and stand firm in those no's. There'll be guilt that comes up when you first start practicing saying no to an imbalance of energy, overgiving. One of my patterns, overgiving, when we can say no to ourselves, to not overgive, and to say no to others. There will be a residual guilt that will come up. That's an interesting awareness, that guilt. And you only need to do it a few times and you won't feel the guilt anymore. You only need to say no, like new no's, where previously in the past you would have said yes. That's the enlightenment of the Pluto transit. I can't count how many times I said to people, wow, I'm growing. In the past, I would have done A, B, C. After I've learned what Pluto and the underworld and the shadow and the inner child and all of this, now I'm doing something completely different. And it's empowering. It's empowering when we lose the patterns and we walk into our new that, well, I don't know if you'd call them patterns. I think you'd call them choices. They become choices then, because you have your awareness on board of what's going on in your life. We might have to look at that. Think about that for yourselves. So that's just a few, okay? Anything that isn't our authentic self. If we're just doing stuff, saying stuff, being with people, that, you know, it's a habit, it's a pattern. We've always done it that way. This is who I am. Now, I have made a video on the fixed signs that are going to be affected with the ingress of Pluto into Aquarius. And that fixed means it's hard for them to change. So it'll be really interesting to see how our fixed sign friends come through the Pluto ingress into Aquarius and those challenging aspects. Because they're fixed. That's the way they do it. And Pluto's going to uncover where it may be a little easier if they adopted other patterns. Choices. All right. Now you're lucky because the patterns don't all pop out at once. But it takes years, this Pluto transit. My last video was a rebirth video that I made on Braxton Hicks. Now, go back and have a look at that video. It was a false rebirth because I had a pattern in the way. Now, I actually got to speak to that person who I was dealing with, and I changed another pattern. We're actually going to keep working together. Now, that could have ended up in a great big fight if I'd have followed my family pattern. As soon as somebody lets me down, right, you're out of my circle. That's my family pattern that I've come from. However, I was able to ring the person I was dealing with, and I started the conversation with, was you and I both don't like conflict. So let's hear each other out here with respect. And bang, wow, we've renewed and strengthened a relationship. That person that I was speaking about in my last video, she's actually got Pluto squaring her natal sun exact. And I've got Pluto conjuncting my natal sun still. But I'm also rebirthing. Okay, so there's so much to learn. Take your time. Yes, it's slow, and some years are excruciating, but get as much as you can to rebirth, to be reborn while you're still living in this body. Ascension, that's what it's about. That's what ascension is about. And those that are having these Pluto transits chose to ascend in this lifetime through the Pluto transit, or not, or not. I've only said it once through all my videos. Some won't make it because they won't do the work. They'll be rigid. They won't change their patterns. However, there will be consequences in the form of internal conflict. And that's painful. Internal conflict is the pain, because we're not being true to ourselves. We're not being authentic because we have these other patterns and behaviors on board that we don't even like. You get to the point where you look at what you're doing and go, I don't want to do this. How can I not do this? It will slowly, slowly come to pass that can be released. Because we've got to be gentle on ourselves, says the Capricorn, who's so hard on herself. I'm so aware of the compassion that we need, because I'm always needing that for myself. So I love you all. Food for thought. Think about these patterns. Soon we have the Sun and Mercury going to oppose Pluto. So there'll be an activation of the Plutonic energy then, personally. Yeah. All right, my friends. Namaste. I love you all. And more videos to come. All right, guys. Thank you.